Hey, welcome to the live stream. Another Wednesday, another live stream. Usually what I tell people at the start here is feel free to skip ahead if you're watching on a replay, like 2 or 5 minutes until we get set up and get started. Otherwise, I appreciate you being here, and yeah, we'll get this thing rolling. We'll give a second for people to jump in, and we'll get Robert in here. One moment. There he is. I'll get him on here. All right. See how this goes. Robert.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Usually, I always explain to people like the first 2 to 5 minutes is us getting all set up and
Yeah, do your
technology
thing.
stuff. So, and we'll allow some time for people to jump in here,
Yeah.
and then I'll just read something off the top, and we'll jump into stuff. All right. Let's see here. One second. The Lionhearted Music. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Richie, what's up, man?
Let's see here. What else? All right. I'm just going to get started, and then people come in as they come in, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
All right. Hello, and welcome to the Bellwether Ritual live stream, where we discuss music, the local Lehigh Valley and beyond, tonight especially, PA scene, bands, social media, and more. Today is Wednesday, October 11th. My name is Mike, and I'm the guitarist and vocalist of Bellwether Ritual. Hope you had a good week. Our next show, just to do some housekeeping, is a Halloween show, October 28th in Bethlehem, PA at the Flying V. So it'll be great to come out. We're getting all dressed up. We're not going to spoil the surprise quite yet, but yeah, and we encourage you to get dressed up as well and come out and hang out with us. Let's see who else. Chaos Guitars, thank you for joining. Beyond the Portal, thank you for joining. If you have questions, you can drop them in the comments below, and we will ask them as we go. Tonight, our guest is Robert Becker of Fauxtrot. Fauxtrot is a progressive hardcore, post-hardcore band out of Philadelphia. Their debut single, Retrace Embrace, was just released last week, which is awesome. We'll talk about that coming up too. And there's more music slated in 2023. Yeah, we'll talk about all that and more. Robert, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man.
Good. Welcome to the stream. Is there anything you
Having me.
want to plug? I know you just released like a single. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we just put out our song Retrace Embrace. Came out last Friday.
Yeah.
It's on platforms. So look that.
Been streaming it for sure. And then you got some other things planned coming up. Like, is there some more tunes recorded, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so we have a sort of collection of songs that is in coming out this year. We have another single coming out in the near future. To hear about. Uh, And yeah, so we're working on putting a release of things, but yeah, we got some more stuff coming.
Awesome. Angel Gable, thank you for joining. Let's see here. All right. So there's a bunch of things I have on the list that I like to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But let's start from the beginning here. You're out of Philadelphia. Were you always from the area? Did you move in? Like, what's the deal there?
So this is funny. Your band plays at the same place that my band plays at, and you actually play right before we do. So you're at
Oh,
the Forks, whatever
yeah.
that's called, the China Walk. You play at 11 and whatever. We play at 1. So you guys are in there before us.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so we really have Valley. So
All right,
I've
cool.
lived here my whole life
Mhm.
and just from Philly.
All right, cool. So are the other guys, they're currently down there?
Yeah, so my bass player, he lives in Philadelphia, and my guitarist lives in Ephrata.
Yeah.
So we're actually all kind of all over the place.
All right. Yeah. I spent a significant time, like 7 years. I lived down in Philly and played in bands all over down there and all that good
Cool.
stuff. So yeah, very cool. Yeah. Let's see, Logan. I have to apologize. I'm gonna butcher names because I can't really see very well anymore. Logan C. Drums, thank you for joining, and
Hey, Logan, what's up?
Greg. Yeah, Greg, thank you for joining as well. If you have questions for Robert, you can drop them in the comments, and we will get to them. All right, cool. So we'll get to the how the band started in a little bit.
Hmm?
Well, just really quickly, how is it? So do the guys come up to rehearse, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I just moved. I'm still in Lehigh Valley, but I was in Nazareth. Now I'm in Bethlehem.
Hmm?
We used to have practice at my house pretty consistent every time the shows were coming up, or if we wanted to write. Typically, we would come to my house and do that. Same thing now, but sometimes we go to Philly to rehearse, but mainly we come up here to practice and rehearse. Yeah.
What do you think of that space, the rehearsal space in Forks?
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. 'Cause, I really struggled. Interesting is a good word
Yeah,
to use. And
yeah,
a
I agree.
consistent place in this area, and that place was like literally I grew up in Forks Township, so
Cool.
it was nice to know
I
there's a
live
place
there
there.
now. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's it does what it does. It's there for us when we need it. It's not the prettiest place, but it gets the job done. Let's say.
yeah, it's got character. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Actually, it took me a minute to find it the first time too, because I was
Yeah.
like, "Where is this?" Like, yeah, you go around
I'm
back
trying to
behind the
open
beer
the
store.
door, get like muscle
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. Let's see. Hillary Brown, thank you for joining. Hillary live stream last week. That was a great one. You can go check that one out in the feed. And Danks Delston, I'm going to butcher everyone's name because I do it every
I
time.
knew.
Thank you for joining too. If you have comments, yeah, please feel free to shout anybody out. If anyone has any, if you see anyone with a question, just read it off and answer it. Feel free. Angel says those hallways are scary. Yes, the rehearsal studio hallways are scary for sure. All right. So was there a thing or a person in your life or like a song on the radio that really kind of like got you interested in the music in the first place?
Um, it's hard to pinpoint. I know in seventh grade, I realized a shift in me with that's when I first connected with music on this deep, just listening to it.
Hmm.
Um, I wasn't playing back then or anything, but that's when
Okay.
I noticed a shift in my life with.
I was gonna ask, did you like play in the school band or anything or?
I did choir like in
Okay.
elementary
Yeah.
school, but I consider myself like the most unorthodox musician because I like didn't play instruments for the longest time. I was like late to singing. Like I don't know. It was just like very weird. But no, I did not really play in the band or anything.
I think that's kind of the cool part. Like, I'm trying to think like off the top. There's bands like the Doors. I don't know why that's jumping to mind up front right now, but it was like
Mm.
they had some like three amazing musicians and then like basically like a poet up front who didn't really have musical background. It's like you don't really need that. It's just kind of a feel
Yeah,
thing. So yeah.
yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense. I
uh,
mean, yeah, I definitely wrote a lot when I was younger. Like I was really into writing,
okay,
but I didn't
cool.
know how to translate that into until I actually started doing it.
Yeah. Greg says, I saved him and got him into the goods. Well, thank you for doing that.
He's
And
lying.
yeah, and then so how did the band start then? Was it something like were you looking to put something together? Did it just kind of like a bunch of friends that happen naturally, or how's that work?
Oh, man, so I was trying to get a project together for like years in the area because I'm familiar had a lot of musicians. And
Mhm.
eventually I found a person online, and they were like, "Hey, who wants to start a band?" And I was like, "I do." And I was like, "Where do you live though?" And he lived in New York. And then we kind of wrote music online,
Oh,
and
okay.
we met our current guitarist and our current bass player, and then we've kind of been playing. We went in the we started in the pandemic, much or just before the pandemic, and then we had a lot of time to write and not play live. So we, you know, worked on music that way, and we kind of started. I met my guitarist online as well, and then our bass player is his cousin. So
Okay, cool. That always seems to work well. It's always like a chemistry thing, or not just a chemistry thing, but like it's always nice when you know people. Well, they know they've known each other for a while, or they at least know how to get along in that kind of way. I think that's a big part of bands is like you end up either can be with like random people that you have to learn how to work with quickly and be creative with, and that can yeah always be a little bit of a curveball for sure. Let's see. Sandonut, thank you for joining.
yeah,
Uh,
I think it's
so,
interesting actually too what you're saying about
mhm,
finding the right people or getting along with people because that was always my big thing with joining bands is that I always wanted to be friends with the people I played with, and if
mhm,
I wasn't interested in the project because
mm,
it's supposed to be one thing that we do, and I didn't want it to feel like work where it's like I don't really like these people, but like let's make music. I didn't like that sort of atmosphere and like the
yeah.
guys who play with friends. So it's hard to
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, is it
find,
still that
but
way? Yeah, for sure.
it's awesome when you do find it.
Yeah. We've uh, we've been through some like personnel changes, especially over this last year, just like life things happening, and it's always interesting.
Yeah.
It's like chemistry definitely is like musical chemistry is definitely a part of it, and so is like the basics of like just getting along. Like, do I want to drive in a van with this person for 8 hours, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's always a consideration as well. But it is interesting. It's like you want to try to find the people who are going to do it because they love to do it, and not because there's any necessarily money tied to it or whatever else comes with being in a band.
Yeah, and what's nice because we all live far, we actually, even though when we have practice afterwards, we usually get to hang out for a bit.
That's
And
cool.
it's kind of nice because like typically we do spend a lot of together working on stuff, but when we're not, it's like, oh, we can just hang out because we're actually friends.
Hmm.
And that's really like satisfying and like, oh, I can take a breather because this is just my friend, not like some guy I don't like.
Yeah, that's one thing I actually want to get better at is doing like outside. Like we just get together to play right now. I would love to do things that outside of the band to, yeah, just get out of the musical sphere for a second
Hard.
and just connect with
It's
people because I think that is really important too.
hard.
Yeah, it is. I always feel bad because it's like, oh, people have families and we ask them to put a lot of time into the band and like you want to ask them for even
Yeah,
more just to hang out and stuff. So yeah, for sure.
exactly. Exactly.
Let's see. Kandirk, thank you for joining. If I butcher these names, feel free to correct me
Dan, what's
and
up, dude?
okay.
Dan, actually, fun fact, he was like my first drummer in my when I started doing music. He's from he lives in Ohio now, but he
Oh,
was my good
awesome.
buddy. We started playing music like years ago, and he was one of my friends. I met him online too, and we became good friends. So shout out to Dan, bro.
Very, very cool. Dan, what part of Ohio are you from? Feel free to post that in the comments below. We had a band on the live stream. Must have been a couple months ago already from Canton area who are awesome. So it's always good to yeah, see where everyone's from. Hopefully make some connections. Let's see. Oh my God, I gotta get glasses here. BBB Rolo, thank you for joining.
What's up, dude?
uh, let's see. Okay, so you start around 2019, and then
Hmm?
basically we go right into shutdown. How does this like? All right, so
Yeah.
you take the time to be like, well, let's at least try to write songs together. Talk about that. Maybe like how does that start? Where does that happen? How does that work online? And then how is that different to when you are actually able to get together and do that like face to face?
Yeah, so it started like I was playing with our guitarist and or he came in a couple times. He was like because we had a rotating guitarist in our band
Hmm.
and we had the drums, who was my friend Dan. We had bass, who was my friend Craig, and then me on vocals, and no one could play guitar, so we needed a guitar player. And we kept getting new ones. And my
Hmm.
one friend who played guitar, we decided eventually he was like, we should write some stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. So we're doing this thing online where we're sending files and he'll write riffs and then we'll like do a live session like this where it's like super laggy, but he'll like play a riff and I'm like, all right, cool, let me try to sing over this. And then I would
Mm.
film it. And it was like so janky.
Yeah.
But that was the writing process kind of. And then we went through it for so long that once things opened up a little, we got together like a year later to actually play them. And he worked with our drummer at the time on like going over guitar and drums. So then when I got there, it was the three of us.
Mm. How did it translate? Like, was it were you able to just kind of pick it up and play it together? Did it take a little while to?
We actually were able to pick it right up because they lived by each other,
Oh,
so they got to
okay.
practice
Yeah.
guitar and drums all the time. And then
Oh,
they would
that's
just
cool.
update me, and I would just like practice, and then like I'd show up every once in a while because I was the guy who was like far away, so I'd make it out when like they felt good. They were like, all right, let's try to do the whole thing. I'm like, all right, I'll be up there. Yeah, so it actually went well.
Very cool. Uh, y- please correct me, but BBB Rolo says, "Can't wait to hear my music. Good shit, Rob." Yeah, I
Thanks,
agree.
brother.
It was cool. I got to listen to some of it, well, the single, and I thought you had two guitar players at first because the initial riff kind of does this ping pong into the left and right ears. I thought you were kind of going back and
Yeah,
forth, but that was really cool. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And you looks like you booked a tour recently. Is that correct?
Yep, we just announced it today, actually. So
Yeah,
we're
cool.
going to be
Checking that
hitting
out.
the East Coast. We're hitting Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania with our friends in Resticide and Varia, both from
Yeah.
Virginia.
So how did that come along? Like, are these like more people you're like making connections with on the internet, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I like to use the internet as my
I
playground, essentially,
could tell.
because it's crazy. So I met Patrick, who's the singer of Varia. He was the vocalist of Set for Tomorrow. We played a show with them in 2021 at Planet Trog / Club
Yeah,
Kerrigan's, and I met him
dude, we
back then.
played there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I met him back then, and then that's how I know him. And then he's friends with Rest Aside, and we all connected. Mostly, I mean, they're from Virginia. I didn't see them very often in person, so
Hmm.
we did kind of communicate on the internet a lot. But yeah, the
Yeah.
internet is a great tool. It'll steal your life away if you let it, but it's a great tool to connect with people.
Yeah. Is there like a site or a platform or an app that you like to use or that you find successful with that? Because that is always connectivity is always kind of like an issue, and community building is always
Well,
something we're looking to do.
that's a That's a great question. So, with meeting band members, I've done list, I've done band mix, I've done Vamper. I
Oh
met
yeah.
my current guitarist on band mix. I met my Dan, who was our previous drummer,
Uh-huh.
on band mix. And with connecting with musicians though, like just like friends and stuff, Instagram is the best because I'll
Mm.
like go to a show or I'll find out a band that I like and then I'll find out when they're playing near me and
Mhm.
then I'll go to the show, I'll talk to them and then we'll connect. Like I've made so many connections and friends, even a lot of them just doing that.
And so, how are you doing that? Are you just like commenting on things, trying to get a conversation started? Do you just like DM them and say, "Hey, what's up? We're a band. We're looking to
I
this, that,
literally
and the other."
am just a fan. These bands that I
Hmm.
have made friends with, I'm like, hey, I love your music.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come out to the show. I'm gonna introduce myself. And I've been doing that, but when I started the band, it was cooler. It was more interesting to be talk to them and say, hey, I'm in a band too. Can we play a show together? And expand that sort of relationship and that network. But yeah, no, it's being a fan, honestly. That's how I've
Yeah,
done it.
that is the best way. And like going to shows and like supporting other bands in the community. I know Dave from Chaos Guitars was on here before. He's
Yeah.
always a big proponent of that. Actually, I think he's starting to, they're going to start doing something new. I think they're going to try to bring like outside bands into the Lehigh Valley Allentown area to play some monthly shows.
That's
So
cool.
I haven't, yeah, I haven't really talked to about the details yet, but very exciting thing to do because I think that's important. You already are kind of out of the valley just from where your band members are, but that was important for
Mhm.
us. It's like, all right, we played the valley for maybe the first couple months, and then we're like, we have to book outside and just
Yeah.
make sure we don't get kind of stuck, doing the very small, yeah, regional the Lehigh Valley Loop. So, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like once
Nah.
you get out of that, it becomes a little bit easier to do. And then I would love to set up like we're trying to basically we have connections to a whole bunch of venues and do a little bit more of a wider regional like
Okay.
touring loop. So yeah. So talk a little bit about the tour. Have you ever done anything like that before? Is this kind of the first time for you? Yeah.
First
So,
time.
like, do you have any kind of expectations, or like, how'd you go about booking it? All that good stuff.
uh, so booking it is something. It was difficult reaching out to a lot of places in the areas that we were trying to go
Hmm.
because we figured out we wanted to start in Virginia and then end in Jersey. So go the furthest out first and then come back close to home. So it's a lot of unanswered emails for sure, but you have to send them because if you don't, you're never going to find out. And also, even if you're fully far in advance, people will still tell you, oh, it's kind of late. Like we booked like I think 4 months in advance or something like
Oh, that's
that,
great.
longer.
Hmm.
And some people are like, oh, it's kind of late, and I'm like, how? So it was booking it was very difficult, and it did consume and still consumes my soul to a large extent. But it's happening and we're here, so just happy to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many bands are on the bill? Three, you said, on the
Yeah, so
tour
it's
rather.
it's three bands that are going to be on the tours. They're on Varia's on three of the dates. Resticide's on two of the date two of the dates, I believe.
Hmm.
And then we're on one show without both of them, and then another show with
Oh,
just one of them, and then the other two shows are all of them. Um, just had some like logistical things. They had another show they were on, and we had so we like whatever.
I,
But
I
yeah,
know the deal. Yep.
and the rest are all local bands to those areas that I know or that I made connections with or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
super excited because there's some bands that like again I was just a fan, and like now it's like oh I get to play with them. Like Fellowship was a band that they're from Virginia, and I was friends with their guitar player. I never met them, I never saw them, but I just liked their music and we connected. And now we're playing a show. And then this band called Humble Abode was just a fan, and now I connected with them. I actually booked a show for them a couple months ago, and
Hmm.
then now I'm playing a show with them. We were supposed to play that show, we weren't able to, but now we get to make up for that on this tour.
Very cool. Yeah, I've just pulled up the graphic too. Where in Philadelphia are you playing? I don't even know it's been a while since I've been down there. Like what venues are even
Yeah,
still around?
so we're going to the it's kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
our
yeah.
home base. They're really great here, and they always ask us to come back, and we have a great time when we're there. So that's our Philly show, the Fire.
Hmm. Yeah. It's been a long time since I played there, but yeah, it's like Northern Liberties, right?
Still kicked in, yeah, Northern
Um,
Liberties. Yep,
good city. Like yeah, almost Fishtown-ish. Yeah.
yep.
Um, so how about is Philly like somewhere you're looking to play regularly? Like, or is that where you would call home base, or you feel like you're more like a Lehigh Valley band, or
Yeah, we're a Philly band for sure. That's where we're from.
yeah,
Um, I just live here. I'm from here, but we're technically like a Philly-based band, so that's kind of our home
cool.
base. It's where
Yeah,
most people
yeah,
come
yeah.
out to see us and know us and stuff. So yeah.
Very cool. That's another thing we've been trying to do. I know Angel just said working on it, on booking that regional circuit, and that's
Oh, cool.
definitely one of them. So yeah, just doing this like same thing exactly what you're talking about. It's like find those bands that you dig that sound like they don't even really need to sound like you necessarily, but it definitely
No.
helps. And yeah, just
Yeah.
put the word out, try to trade some shows and that sort of thing. Um, you described your music earlier as like post-hardcore, and you had a couple other things in there. Like what are some of the
hmm
things like when you hear a band, like what really kind of gets your ear when you're listening to other bands, or what's the kind of styles or things that you like that you try to put in your own music?
We're a big fan of like genre blending. So um, we like energetic, fast-paced, like
Mm-hmm,
melodic but catchy and heavy kind of music. And
hmm
I like when you hear influences from other genres that you wouldn't expect.
hmm
And it's still in that space of like progressive rock, post-hardcore, but you can hear like, oh, this is R&B influence, or oh, this
Yeah.
is like prog influence. I like that a lot.
I love what I definitely got like there's just a rub that happens when you live in Philly. Like you get like an R&B, like it just gets into you and it just comes out, I
Mm.
think, naturally. No matter what style you play, you just have this kind of like R&B influence. I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, that was a plus about Philly. I feel like people can be pretty tough down
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
especially actually, yeah, it can just be a little, yeah, the city of brotherly love. Not always, but I just feel like,
Agreed.
yeah, right.
Agreed.
Um, but everyone does have that, like, I don't know, just that swagger and all the music that comes out of that I really enjoy.
Mhm.
Geode, thank you for joining. I think you have some gigs coming up too. Drop them in the comments and I'll read them off. I think one's on the November 11th because we also have one on November 11th. Let's see. You want to talk about the single a little bit because it does blend a lot of genres. I think there's a point where it kind of changes, not completely, but towards the end too, where it just kind of not takes a right hand turn, but it definitely does this like goes to a different place kind of thing? Is that something
Mm.
that just kind of happens naturally, or are you listening for things like that?
Yeah, so that song's interesting. It's very unorthodox structurally. We wrote a song that pretty much didn't have a chorus, and I was the one who kind of forced it. So like, if you listen closely, the chorus, the only part that repeats in the song comes back later, and it's over completely different riffs.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, this has to happen. I really like weird structured songs,
Mm-hmm.
but I like weird structured songs that still stuff kind of comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was the idea with this one where it was like so all over the place, like so weird, crazy, weird time signature part and like almost like a Latin like drum
Mm-hmm.
feel and all these weird things, but like I um I was proud of it because even though it's all over the place, I still feel like it starts and ends, and you get what it's trying to do without getting
Mm-hmm.
lost. Um, so yeah, that was kind of the single. It was very, and it's the weirdest one. So like the other music that we have aren't as strange structurally, but this
Yeah.
one was, and I was like, that should be the single. I might have shot myself in the foot for that, but people have liked it, so
That's good. I was just gonna ask you about that. Like, how do you go about picking like the first piece of music you want to put out there? Or I don't know. This is your first release, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so like how do you go about that? Like, all right, we got this group of songs, what should be first?
Well, we had conversations. This was like the first one that I wrote, and it has a special place in my heart, but it doesn't mean that it had to be the single. I
Hmm.
just was like, then the next one that we're putting out is obviously a single. It like when you're like, yeah, okay, doesn't mean that it's not doing its own weird whatever, but
Uh-huh.
it just when you hear it, you're like, yeah, okay. And I kind of wanted to surprise people, I guess, with a phrase, and do something a little weirder, and see how that goes. And then for the next thing, see how that goes, where it's like, well, this is more of what a single should be, and see how that is received.
Yeah, yeah, it's always really interesting. There's like you're saying, there's ones that are like, oh, I really this one just connects with me somehow. I don't know,
Hmm.
in the writing process, or someone brings something in, it's like, oh, this one's my favorite right now, or whatever.
Yeah,
But then once you release them to the world, like people will be like, oh no, I love this one. It's
they
like, really, this one? And
decide.
then
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And you kind of have to balance that a little bit. Yeah, it's just a weird experience, and it's like, all right, well, how much do you let that lead things, or it brings up all these kind of strange, not bittersweet feelings, but it's just like, oh, really, that's what you like, and then you try to like get into their head, like, oh, what do you like about it, and
Yeah.
yeah, do you find yourself like, do you write with an audience in mind at all, or you just the people in the band?
That's a good question. It's a lot off of feel, definitely like
Hmm.
know kind of where we want to be genre wise, but
Hmm.
also because we're so progressive, we can go in different directions and it
Yeah.
kind of is still evolving. So we actually don't really write with an audience in mind, like a huge portion of the writing. It's definitely a thought, and when we're writing stuff, it's like, oh, like this could be a cool thing that the crowd sings, or like, oh, this is like the part where people clap, or oh, this is the
Hmm.
part where you do a circle pit, like whatever.
Yeah.
Those things come up,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like an afterthought thing. It's not like intentionally we have to write a song. It's like
Yeah.
just happens if you know.
Always happy when one of those come out, though. I'm like, hell yeah.
Well, we have a song on our new record. It's not out yet, but I'll say this. Our drummer came in and he actually kind of spot.
Get out.
He did a great job. He did
Don't tell our drummer.
he did a he did this like gallop for the start of this one song, and none of us
Yeah.
knew it was coming, and we were like, "Do we want this? Like, is this weird?" And I was like, "Do my vocals that I wrote work over this?" The producer was like, "Yes, do the gallop, keep the gallop, it's all gonna
Hmm.
work." And I was like, "All right," and then yeah, so it's yeah, sometimes things just happen spontaneously too. So
Yeah. I'm very much more of like I like traditional song structures. I like
okay,
all this is me personally. So I
yeah,
tend to write like very straightforward. And then like our guitar
okay,
player Shane, he likes to throw the curveballs in there. So he'll be
nice.
uh, a little more of the odd time signatures, or like, yeah, we don't ever have to go back to that part. I'm like, what? I love that part. What? Just he's more the
So do you guys like
curveball.
balance each other, or
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
guys like
yeah.
kind of
No,
like butt heads
no,
sometimes?
actually, he was the first person. He was the first guitar player I ever met that had a very similar kind of aesthetic. It was like, let's try to be simple. He's a really good listener,
Mm.
and he like listens for the holes and then fills in the holes. So we
Okay.
rarely. I mean, there are times we play the same thing, but it's usually when we're trying to like lock in for something like heavier. But a lot of times we're
Mm.
kind of doing some like contrasty stuff. So
Oh, that's cool. That's
yeah, it
cool
was really
dynamic.
yeah, it was really kind of the first time I was ever really comfortable with another guitar player, and that
Mm.
happened really naturally. And that's kind of where the beginnings of the whole, I feel like the whole band started, because it's a lot of like harmonies and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting how
That's really cool.
one
I love hearing
one
stuff like
person,
that.
yeah. and how one person can switch things all around. So, but yeah, it makes some really interesting things, like things I would never think of, or places I would never go. That's what I love about group writing as a group. Is like I would have
Yep.
never thought of that. It came out great, and yeah. So I heard you say you had a producer. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the recording process and like what they bring into it? Talking about it having another voice in the whole process as well. That's always an interesting thing.
Yeah, so our producer for our release, his name is Eric Navarro, and he's up in, I forget where that is, but his studio is called Navarro Studios, and he is a friend of ours. He's in this band called So Much Hope Buried. Shout out to those guys. He's the drummer in
Yeah.
that band. We were very cautious about going to producers because we don't know any producers. We weren't sure if people knew the genre or the thing we were going for, so it was very scary. And when we
Hmm.
found Eric, we were we knew him. It was like, oh, we know this guy, but like working with him in a producer setting is different. So we were all kind of like anticipating slash anxious that. And
Hmm.
honestly, very soon, once that process started, it was like, and he said to us, he said, I want you guys to enjoy this. And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And he said that, but there was one day or multiple days for all of us where we were like, I don't know if I want to do music anymore. Because I remember in the studio, I was recording vocals for the next song that we're putting out, and my guitarist was on the couch with the headphones on, listening to the session, and he fell asleep, and I was still like on the first verse or whatever after like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because I just couldn't get this part down. I was getting so pissed,
Yeah.
and then I left the studio after we finished, and he told his wife, he was like, I don't know if Rob's coming back tomorrow. It was a day for him. And he told me that after like we were all done recording everything.
Yeah.
But he really pushed us, and I appreciate his contribution to working with us, hearing our ideas, but also putting his opinion and ideas to us and collaborating,
Hmm.
because we wanted someone that could keep us in line to be like, okay, this part, whatever, might try this, try that. Like someone who understood the vision, but also added their input so that we can actually collaborate to make something unique that we couldn't do by ourselves. So it's like
Hmm.
hands in, hands out, like, back and forth. That's what we really liked, and that's what he was great at, and he's awesome.
I feel like there could be a bit of a mediator too. Like if you are butting heads at a, I should, yeah. There's definitely times we butt heads. Like yes,
Of
you're
course.
gonna have that happen with any kind of collaborative thing. But to have someone who's not in the band or invested in it from a really personal space, and like they have that take a step back kind of view on it that
Yeah,
can maybe
yeah,
help you communicate or try those things that you might not have thought of. Yeah, it's very cool. And it sounds great. The single
100%.
sounds excellent for sure. So that's,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. How long, like, did you go in there and knock it out in like a weekend, or are you taking like every Friday night we would go do things, or was it kind of all over the place?
It's kind of all over the place. We started in, I think, April or March? No, February. I
Oh,
have
that's
to
right.
check back. It was
I
like,
remember yeah, we had connected a little bit like initially, and then
oh,
you were
okay. So yeah, it was
talking
like
about starting that. Yeah.
early winter, late winter, and then we finished it in like May,
Hmm.
June. So yeah, it was like a day here, 2 days here, a
Hmm.
day here, and it was spread out because our schedules just weren't aligning.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be there for every session, even though I was last because I'm a vocalist. So I just wanted to be immersed, and I wanted to be like kind of like a second person to be like, hey, what about this thing you said you were gonna do? And yeah, I just like I was so like specific, and I was just like I want to be here through everything. Um, so yeah, I'm very specific. I mean, we all are, but I
Sure.
I just like I needed to be there every day just to see how things were unfolding because I was so nervous and anxious and I wanted to do a good job like everyone else. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. You had touched on genre before too, and how you guys
Mhm.
kind of bounce around a little bit. When you started the band, was there like, did you have a vision of what you wanted? Was it like something you discussed? Like, do you have like, we'd like to be within these kind of boundaries?
Yeah, so when I met our original guitar player online, he was like, "Who wants to start a swancore band?" And
Oh,
swancore is
okay, cool.
essentially like progressive post-hardcore, so it's like kind of what our band is a little bit. But
Hmm.
since our other guitarist has joined the band, we're expanding even more because his style is different, and we're continuing to. We're still, I think, still trying to figure out what our sound is actually because these songs in this EP sound like this, and then the stuff that we're working on that's not a part of this sounds
Hmm.
different, but you can still tell it's the same band.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a good question, but yeah.
Yeah. Greg, thank you for following. We'll follow you back as soon as we're done here. Um, Talk a little bit about lyrics and melodies. Like, is this something
Okay.
that you are like, how does that happen? Do you wait to get like a piece of music together, or are you just writing all the time, or is it like reactionary? That how does that work?
That's a great question. When I first started writing vocals and lyrics, I couldn't even play guitar. So I was writing songs. I basically would take poems or writing things that I would write, and I would try to construct songs without music,
Mhm.
which is so strange. And I kind of made sense of it, but then when I'd bring it to like musicians, sometimes certain things were like weird because there's no BPM, there's no key,
Mhm.
there's no, So I had to learn that the hard way.
Mhm.
And then I started playing guitar, and I think that really helped me kind of change the way that I wrote. But in this project, it's definitely inspired by like riffs or progressions, and
Mhm.
it's really kind of like I typically will try to. I don't usually write lyrics first. I usually just like kind of mumble or hum or say nonsense over guitar riffs or
Mhm.
whatever, and I run through drafts of that until I find something I like, and then I try to figure out words, and then I try to figure out a concept. Um, that's kind of the process.
Yeah, I would say ours is pretty similar. It's a question I try to ask as many guests as possible. I'm
Hmm?
always blown away because I always thought like, oh, that's kind of the way you do it. You write the music, then, well, at least the way I tend to do it is like get some kind of riffs together, get some skeleton of an arrangement, mumble over top so you
Yeah.
can get some kind of syllables and some rough outline of a
Yep.
melody, and then like lyrics kind of come last. But I've been blown away. People are like, well, I start with lyrics and then whatever I feel like they're telling, like completely backwards. And that just always
Hmm?
blows my mind. Or people are very specific, like, I want to write a song that sounds like this other song,
Mm.
like, or, this genre or whatever. So they'll basically just like, this part should sound like this. So they'll just sit there and like bust out this part that is exactly what they're looking for. Where I always thought it was more like, for me anyway, it was more like fishing. It's like, I don't know what I'm gonna catch today, but we're gonna make do with whatever
Right.
comes through. Yeah, so I don't
I
have the yeah, that vision of like, I want it to sound like this, I can make it sound exactly like this as much as some other people.
See, I love songwriting. I think it's so interesting, all the different ways you
Mm-hmm.
can write a song, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always open to trying new things and doing it. We definitely have a system in our band that works, and we like that, but we're all songwriters, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
We really can't, any of us could come to the table with an idea and we can make it into a song, which is really cool and will yield different results because like whoever the primary person was who's writing the song is going to be different than the next person. So that's really cool. And I think because we all understand songwriting in different ways and
Mm-hmm.
create something unique as a group, which is kind of what you were talking about before, where it's like you're not able to do what you're able to do outside of your band that you can in your band because it's a special, unique, let's say,
Mhm.
concoction, ideas and inspirations and influences and all those things.
Yeah, yes, and you can also get down this rabbit hole of like, let's try this, let's try that, let's try, and it's like, oh man, how do you like reel that in to make it all make sense and not feel like riff salad, you know,
Well,
or
see,
whatever.
that was my introduction to playing with people was that I wasn't interested in jamming all the time.
Mm,
So it's cool to jam, whatever, but
mm,
I wanted to write songs and play out.
mm,
Everyone said they wanted to do that, but then they'd show up and they would jam every single time, and I'm like, hey, I filmed this part of our last session, and we said we're gonna work on this, but you didn't work on it. So like, what are we doing? Like,
yeah.
I always just wanted to write songs,
Mm,
and most people just wanted to jam, even if they weren't honest, saying, I actually just want to jam. They'd be like, no, I want to like play out and write songs, but then they just jam. So I'm like, all right, what am I doing here?
there is a lot of jammers. I think our guitar player Shane, he was like, "Yeah, man, my last band, it just kind of didn't go anywhere because it was just like you're stuck in a jam cycle and you just can't get." I mean, I love jamming too. Don't get me wrong, and some great stuff comes out of it, but you do have
Yeah,
to
of
take
course.
like that original jam and then like refine it to a song for sure.
Yeah.
Gilvan Rodriguez, ¿cómo estás? Mackie Matt, thank you for joining. Um, Yeah, all right. So, oh, let me talk to you a little bit about this.
Hmm?
Do you have like a release strategy for your music? I know you just released a single. Are you gonna kind of do like singles? Are you gonna put them all together? Are you gonna do a little bit of both?
That's a great question. I've been asking myself what that is for a long time, and us as a band too.
Hmm.
We do have a strategy, and the mark, sorry, the climate of consuming music has changed recently in the past couple of
Hmm.
years than what it was, and I personally kind of hate the current climate of music, where it's like
Hmm.
so much consumption of stuff and
Hmm.
with zero like lasting power or standing
Yeah.
power. That really bums me out because you put so much money, time, and effort
Hmm.
into a thing, and then it's like what song? And it's like this just came out. Can you just listen to this one for a little bit
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah.
So yeah, so uh, my my soul is like I want to do a song and do another song and then a whole album. But in
Hmm.
reality, the climate is kind of like just do singles, don't even do any collection of songs. We're doing in the middle.
Hmm.
So we're doing singles and we're gonna do a collection of songs, a small collection of songs at the end.
Very cool. That's very similar how we're handling it. We are actually a little bit behind. We owe we'll have one out by Thanksgiving, but
Cool.
we got the first four like one at a time, and now we're actually probably gonna have our drummer remix and remaster it, and then put it out as like they're already out, but now it released as like an EP. I
Oh,
think
okay.
I feel like that's kind of a decent way to keep feeding the beast, but at the same time, like repackaging in a way that people can enjoy it in a couple different
Well, and it's
ways. Do you ever do like
all there so they can just keep going from
yep,
song to song.
yep, that too, for sure. Do you ever do anything like conceptually? Like, do you ever connect songs at all lyrically or thematically or anything like that? Or have they just been their own individual?
Um, oh man. Uh, I th on this current thing, I think there was a connection, and I think I cut it, or a producer cut it, or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I love that. So I am also kind of like a solo artist too,
Okay, cool.
and I want to do something with songs that I'm writing where like all of these things that I've done are all connected, and you'll hear like, oh, this was in that one song, or oh, this was in that other song. Like I
Hmm.
like that a lot, and I think that that's really creative and clever way to write, and I think people who are just fans of you will appreciate that the
Yeah,
most because they're like,
yeah,
I noticed that. I think that that's cool.
yeah, for sure. Uh, we started in the pandemic as well, and like
Nice.
I was just writing demos just to get something out, so as a starting point,
Mhm.
of like here's kind of where I'm at, like who's interested, kind of thing. And
Right.
it ended up being like this collection of songs that, in my mind, all had like a story running through it. And then I was like, oh,
Uh,
this is gonna be awesome. And then it's like, well, we like this one, and we'll take that one, and it just becomes like a one-off,
so your
thing.
story just
Which,
collapsed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just like it's something like you can't hold on to it too tight, because it just doesn't always work out that way. But yeah, I always thought that was.
Yeah.
And to your point, I would love, of course, to release an album like that too, but it's so much time and effort. And then you're right. You release it, people burn through it, and they're like, "All right, when's the next one?" It's like, "Are you serious? That just took us a year just to get together and release, and
We're
you're done
still
in
in
a
the
week."
hole financially. Like, give
Yeah,
us some time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Can you talk a little bit about? We got about like 10 minutes left.
Mhm.
Some of the like, what do you think like the biggest challenges of being in a band are?
I love this question. So many. I would say figuring out what you want to do and how to do it,
Mm,
but also having the mental fortitude to continue on. Because my, I guess part of the most frustrating slash the most beautiful thing about doing this was that there were so many moments along this journey to get here that I was like, I'm gonna quit. I hate this. Um, and like I really like when I say for 2 years just playing guitar alone, I wanted to smash my guitar every single day.
mm,
Like
mhm,
that's not even adding musicians. That's just me and a guitar. And then you add
mhm.
other people and all those uh, personalities and in and out energy. Like it's so hard to I guess press on when it's so discouraging because so many bad things happen all the time, and you're kind of alone in this music thing. Like, who cares that I'm doing this? I'm the only person pushing myself into this
Oh
situation. I
man,
can back out at any time. Why don't I
yeah.
back out today? How about tomorrow? But I think the most important thing with that struggle is that you continue on because when I first started this journey, I had no skills. And now I have skills, but I had to pretty much die in every way to become this better person, this um, have more skills
Mhm.
under my belt over the years. So, and I'm still learning. I'm not, perfect, but I think that that's super important for who is trying to be in a band or do music. Just understanding what they're looking for and trying to set goals and small goals, large goals, and working at it incrementally within your means. I think that's super important.
That's a great one. Really quickly, a very visible thank you for joining. I forgot to bring this up because you had touched on it before,
Yeah.
and it just rang all the bells. It's like I definitely go through this. Like it's just this cycle of like, I love this. This is amazing. It's not working. Rage quit and then start over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel your pain on that one. Thankfully now I have people around me to be like, you're just push through it. This is just something, you get down or things don't go like you imagine them to, so it
Yeah.
becomes like,
And
oh well, forget it all.
that's when your support system in your band or
Yeah,
whoever's helping you is super crucial because if you don't have that, it's really difficult to want to push yourself in a situation that's already extremely difficult.
yeah, that's great. I was gonna ask you if you have any advice for bands starting out too, but that seems like a pretty good one as well.
Hmm.
Do you
So,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a good answer to it. But if you do have any other things, like if someone comes up to you and like, hey, I want to put a band together, where should I start? Do you have some advice
Oh,
for people?
yeah, that's a good question. Uh, be open-minded. I think that's a huge skill that everyone should have.
Yeah.
Because you can't, kind of like you were saying before, you have this idea of like what you want to do, whatever, and it might not be 100% that when you get to the end of the road. So
Hmm.
just being open-minded and working with other people and communicating. Be open-minded and work on your communication skills because that's going to get you very far in life in general and
Yeah.
especially in the music world, for sure.
Man, that's so good. You hit it right on the head there. I um, actually went to see a therapist about that because I had problems with that
Mhm.
in work actually
Okay.
that caused some issues, and I was like, I need to solve this problem. So I went to talk to somebody about it, and still working on it. But like, I agree, it's such a powerful skill that people don't really think about, especially musicians, because they're just like, and this I was totally this way. I was like, I just want to get really good at my instrument, and everything else will come. And it's like, no, I mean, if everything else you mean sit in your apartment on your couch and just shred all day, yeah, I guess. But
Well,
there's such a social element to that that I
like
feel like people miss out on.
yeah, and our band too, we do like we try to do meetings like every
Cool.
often just to check in and be like, how's everybody doing?
Yeah.
How's everybody feeling? Here's the plan for next week. Here's the plan for next month.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to do? Let's talk about specifics. How are we feeling? I think that's important because even though my band are my best friends, there are times where maybe something that I like or want to do, they don't want to do. And we need to
Hmm.
hash that out and talk about it so that we can come to a mutual understanding of like, okay, I said this, you said this is what we're gonna do. All good. Let's move on. Like those things are huge. And I think that I guess that's another piece of advice for bands is that that goes with communication, but honestly, have like check-ins with your band members is a big
Yeah,
deal because that shows
for
that you're
sure.
willing to hear their ideas or talk about things and just so that everyone's on the same page and you all do what you want to do anyways.
Yes, love that. That's a big one for us too. We have like a rehearsal day and then just a video chat meeting
Nice.
day where we discuss all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's a big help for sure. Radio 717, thank you for joining. Says, hey, might be a bit late. Yeah, we're just about to wrap up, but we appreciate you jumping in here. Let's see, what else do I have for like wrap? Oh, just one really quick one. I suffer from this a lot. Our bass player, we didn't get a chance to talk about it when we had a live stream, but we both are like suffer from stage fright still. So like, is there something? Are you like a natural on stage? Is there something that makes you nervous? How do you get over it if so?
Definitely one of my biggest up was public speaking and being in front of people, which I don't know how I got here, but I'm also I'm also a big fan of like facing your fears and like seeing the things that that really because I think what's really big uh, character development is like when you're able to face like those fears head on and see like what happens. Like,
Hmm.
can I do this? Like, am I gonna die if I do this? Like, what's actually gonna happen? And
Yeah.
I still feel this level of um, I don't want to say stage fright, but like I feel weird sometimes on stage. It honestly sometimes depends on the crowd.
Yeah.
Like certain places I'm like more confident, some places I'm more
Yeah.
reserved.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not quite sure. I'm still figuring that out, but I definitely have gotten more comfortable over the years for sure. And I don't know. For me, it's just like an ongoing seesaw of I feel weird, I feel great.
Yep, same. And I think you really nailed it there. It's like I do these things to make myself uncomfortable, to try to figure it out or grow or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Because it's like, yes, some people are like, oh, like you're this way off stage, but like, yeah, that's the whole point is like to try to get out of that
yeah.
comfort zone, and
Mm.
because that's where you're probably going to learn about yourself and the whole thing. So. All right, so we are at just about an hour here. Went really, really quick. You just want to plug everything one more time and then we'll sign off?
Yeah, so I'm in a band called Foxtrot, and I have to spell this so everyone knows. It's
Hmm.
Fauxtrot. We're on all social media, Instagram, Facebook. If you just type in Foxtrot Band, Foxtrot_band on Instagram, Foxtrot Band on Facebook. We're on Apple Music, Spotify. We just put a song out called Retrace Embrace. You can find that on all the streaming platforms. Yeah, and we're gonna
Yeah.
be on tour.
Um,
We're gonna be on tour in November.
yeah, there you go. So, Robert, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's for sure book a show too. We're going to be booking for 2024 coming up soon. We're just kind of laying low and recording for the rest of the year, but that would be great too. And yeah, thank you for your time. And thank you everyone for listening and participating. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Cool.
Thank you so
Have a
much
good night.
for having me. You
Yeah,
too.
man, it was fun. Later.